For today's video, I wanted to talk about a topic which occurred to me in the past couple of days when I was thinking about just the Joker film in general, is that why don't we have more of these DC Black Label films, and where exactly are they? And this is like rather a question pointed towards Warner Brothers, as when it came to the Joker, I think many of you know how successful that movie was with the fans and financially as well, but I would just like to give you a bit of an explanation and why I feel like that not having these DC Black Label films shows you how incompetent the executives over at DC Films and Warner Brothers are. To just give you a bit of a breakdown of the Joker was a rather low budget. The budget was around 56 to 60 million dollars. It was an R-rated character study where the director Todd Phillips was given full creative control, and that is an important part that you should remember. And the movie, of course, was starring an accomplished actor in Joaquin Phoenix. And that movie, which at first the executives, quote unquote, didn't get it, went on to become the most profitable comic book movie ever made. And now on the surface, that would look really, really good for Warner Brothers. But the truth is that they have sold the rights of the movie to several distribution companies, so therefore they only got like a chunk change of the profit. And when you listen to interviews from the director Todd Phillips, he was actually very vocal about how hard it was to get that movie made. But I felt like that with the success of Joker and just seeing the movie in general, that this should have been the way for DC films. And one of the biggest reasons why I feel like this should have been is right after BVS, with Suicide Squad, it's well known that they chopped up the movie, and then Wonder Woman came and that was a success, but then with Justice League back in 2017, they really wanted to copy Marvel and it didn't really work. But with Aquaman it kind of worked, but it was rather its own thing. And I feel like the DC really needed to further differentiate themselves from Marvel and the competition. But of course, now that there is basically no competition other than Marvel, I feel like these Black Label movies should have helped DC to carve their own path and identity comes to just the landscape of comic book movies in general. But when you really think about it, we have these big budget blockbuster films with the leading faces, with Aquaman, Gal Gadot, and yeah, that's basically it when it comes to DC films. And alongside those movies, you could have had these smaller budget, rather character study or character focused movies with probably an R rating that would depend on the director. And I feel like that this would have been the perfect balance to satisfy like the cravings of both people who are much more inclined towards these rather deep and profoundly emotional stories, and the people who just want their big budget blockbuster films to see them in theaters. And I feel like that would have been a perfect balance. But to just give you a bit of an overview of what DC and Warner Brothers are doing now, in the last year or so, they have had Birds of Prey, which I still haven't seen, and that should tell you a lot about the movie itself. They have released Wonder Woman 84, which was not the most well-received movie, even though it was financially successful. The Suicide Squad is coming up. We have The Batman, which was pushed to 2022. But the rather interesting questions would be, where is the Aquaman sequel? The sequel to a movie which made over $1 billion back in 2018. We still haven't even gotten an official announcement that they have the script ready. They haven't even done that. And we still have no confirmation of the sequel of that movie. And also, where is the Shazam sequel? Like, the movie came out almost like 2 years ago, and they still don't have anything ready for that movie. Even though the movie was obviously going to be a success because of their low budget, even though it didn't make a lot of money at the box office compared to other movies, it still made more than its fair share. And what about the Black Adam movie? And that would also connect to the Shazam universe as well. They have removed the Black Adam movie's release date, and we still don't know if it's shooting this year or what about it. We still have no information about the movie whatsoever. And I feel like that with the current situation and the box office returns, it is not financially viable to do big budget blockbuster films. The Joker shows that you don't need a $200 million budget to succeed in order to just turn a profit. But I feel like that Warner Brothers, they just don't care about the DC Films franchise. And if they did, they would already be developing these films at the moment that the Joker would have made its money back, or they just saw the first weekend box office returns. But there is still no news about that as well. And just a few suggestions for what these rather DC Black Label films would look like, just to pick some characters where you could make them into a movie. I would feel like that Lex Luthor would be an obvious pick alongside Mr. Freeze, or maybe Maxwell Lord, or you could do like Two-Face, Harvey Dent turning into Two-Face and that duality. You could also make a rather more action-packed version of that DC Black Label with the Red Hood character and Jason Todd's death and how that affects him psychologically. You could also make a movie about Ra's al Ghul and the League of Shadows as well when it comes to that. And you could also make about one Tommy Elliott or Hush and how he connects to Bruce Wayne and just what he goes through in order to exact his revenge on Bruce Wayne. And I feel like that, again, the lack of these projects just shows you that there is zero passion coming from the executives of DC Films and Warner Brothers. It just completely tells you that not necessarily that they don't care about it, because they care as long as they are employed by those companies. But they don't care as much as people like Zack Snyder, Todd Phillips, or Christopher Nolan did back in the day. And I feel like that their lack of vision for DC films have not just hurt the brand, but buried it deep under the competition's feet. There is no real identity when it comes to DC anymore. And that was always the driving force behind DC films, with The Dark Knight, with Watchmen, with Man of Steel, with Batman v Superman. That these movies had a vision, had a clear path where they wanted to go. And there was no compromise, not even in the face of Armageddon, but now we don't see any of that. There are just these fun popcorn flicks with a Joker movie here and there, and that's kind of it. And I feel like this is rather utterly disappointing coming from the executives of Warner Brothers and DC Films. But what do you think? I would love to know all of your thoughts regarding whether you think that these DC Black Label films would be a viable option for DC moving into the future, or would you rather they stick with the leading faces and the bigger budget blockbuster movies, or would you like to see a balance of the two, as I've mentioned before? I would love to hear all of your thoughts in the comments down below. If you have enjoyed the video, please leave a like, as it helps out the channel a great deal. Subscribe for more content like this, and I will see you in the next one. And until then, remember to keep it insightful.